Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be getting women to pick you up. What we're going to talk about today is your social circle and how to interact in your social circle so you're not always focused on trying to approach women or meet women. You literally just go about your life and they seem to just kind of show up, and it makes things a lot easier, especially for those of you guys who have approach anxiety and are just fearful of talking to other people. So I've got two emails I'm going to go through with you today, and then I got a quote I'm going to share with you before I get into the first email. And so the quote I wrote says, "We all love being around happy and successful people. Successful in the sense that they know who they are, what they want, and even though they might not be financially successful, they are successful at making themselves happy. They are successful at having a good time no matter where they are in their lives towards achieving their goals. They truly live in the present moment. They appreciate the gift of life and are living it to the fullest extent possible. Success is being able to spend your life in your own way and spend it with the kind of people you want to spend it with. People who are usually successful at lifting themselves up emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually tend to be successful at lifting others up and making them feel good about themselves also. That is why they are called the life of the party. Become the life of the party in your own life and social circle, and you will never have to work at making friends or meeting new lovers because they will manifest effortlessly and be drawn to you." Obviously, if you've been following me for a while, I place a big emphasis on really just creating a great life and lifestyle for yourself, and you'll meet new amazing people all along the way. So I got a quote here, the first email I got is from a guy who served in the military, and since it's Memorial Day, I thought it'd be a good one to go through, and then we're going to jump into the second guy's email. And he says, "Hey Coach, I bought your book and I have skimmed it a few times but never read the introduction that you wrote titled Honor until now." And he's talking about the very first part of my book. There's a little paragraph. It's kind of like my mission statement, why I do what I do. He says, "Thank you for recognizing the sacrifices that I and so many of my brethren, many who did not come home, have made since 9/11. I was a career warrant officer in the Army and Army National Guard and deployed to Somalia, Haiti, and Iraq in my 17 years of service. During those years, I served in ranks, private first class through CW3. You are right about what you said about love changing the world. Without it, we are doomed. Hopefully someday we will arrive at that point. Until that time, the soldier, sailor, airman, or marine will always be the one to bear the brunt of the quarrels the power elite cannot solve via money or diplomacy. Again, my heartfelt thanks to you for recognizing our selfish altruism." Well, thanks for your service. That's 17 years. That's pretty awesome. I got together with a bunch of friends last night, and we were hanging out, and we were talking about that because we all had a lot of friends and family that have served in the military. And I remember when I was a kid, growing up, when I would have dinner with my grandparents and my dad and my uncles would be there. My grandfather, he served in World War II on my dad's side, and same thing with my mother's father, but he passed away when I was really young. But he was always telling us war stories because he was in the Navy during World War II and interesting things that happened. And I remember, one of the countless times I was sitting down and chatting with my dad as he was recanting some of his experiences when he was in Vietnam and some of his stories. And I remember he looked at me one time and he just said, "I hope you never have to fight in a war." And it's like anybody that's grown up, been raised by people that served in the military or known friends or family that have been, they'll all tell you the same thing. There's a reason why they say war is hell. And I remember years ago I heard a quote somewhere that war is a failure to listen. It's one of the things that Stephen Covey says. Most people listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. And someday, hopefully, as more people start to understand the things that I talk about and I teach and succeed and have the kind of lives they want, these kinds of things, the scarcity and poverty and envy and all these different things that lead to wars and lots of people dying. I mean, especially when you look over the last 100 years, I mean, especially World War II, there was over 50 million people, 50 fucking million people that died in that war. It's just absolutely mind-boggling to think about that. But it's like, hopefully humanity as a whole, we're continuing to move further and further away from those type of events and resolving our differences peacefully. So thanks again for your service, and I appreciate you sharing that email. So let's jump into the next guy's email. This guy's got a really great email of what he did, applying the principles I talk about, not necessarily going out looking to meet any woman, just going out with his buddies, having a good time, laughing, joking, being the life of the party, in essence. Because when we think about it, we've all been around people who are happy, who are smiling a lot, who are successful. They might not be the wealthiest people, but they're, like I was saying in the quote, they're successful at making themselves happy. They just have a perspective, a way that they look at the world, the way they look at their own lives, and they see it, they have a glass is half full kind of mentality. And so even when bad things that most of us would label as being bad happen to them, they always seem to rise above those circumstances and assign empowering meanings to the circumstances of their lives instead of letting those dire circumstances define them. Just like I remember I had a speaking of war vets, I had a guy I used to work with. I was in the construction industry, and he was a superintendent for the company that was doing all the pools, and he was in Vietnam, and he saw a lot of most of the guys from his unit were killed or wounded, didn't come back, and we were talking about it, and because he just seemed like a normal guy, and he just looked at me, he just said, it's like anything in life, you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to let it not affect you, because it can destroy your life if you let the things that you saw over there and the friends that you lost, if you let it affect you in a negative way. And so he just, some people come back and they have a really difficult time with what they saw and what they had to do over there and what they went through and what it means in the context of like who we are and what's life all about. And as other people come back and they just pick up their lives and they move on. And they, like I know my grandfather on my mother's side never want to talk about those things that happened. He saw what the Nazis did to the Jewish people firsthand, and it was a pretty traumatic thing. So he says, "Hey, Coach, first I want to say thank you for all the help you have given me over the past year. I've been watching something very close to 700 of your videos now on YouTube, and I've read your book at least 7 times from cover to cover, and at least 15 times I got parts that I was really struggling with that I've read." That's awesome, man. Repetition's the mother of skill. You're immersing yourself and you're learning the fundamentals and you're going out there and you're applying it. Because being successful in anything in life, not only with members of the opposite sex, but in your career, is really getting to a place where you're successful at making yourself happy. It's really a perspective change. It's not so much how you have to go out and get something. It's how you have to create the vibe in your own life, if you will, so you're vibrationally resonating at a frequency that the things that you want can easily come into your life, and opportunities show up, business opportunities show up. You hear about a job or a career opening because of through your social network or whatever. I remember when I was working for Syntax Rooney in the 90s, that's how I found out about the job in Orlando, is I knew several guys that worked for Rooney at the time. And it's because of the social circle that I built, like-minded people that I met when I was in college. And so because I had relationships that I had established, relationships that I built while I was actually in college, that social circle enabled me to make the jump to Orlando. What was interesting is one of the women that I wrote about in my book, one of the guys that I worked with when I went to work for Syntax Rooney, 5-6 years after I hadn't seen him, I ran into him. And one of the girls that I dated, I wrote about my book, he knew her. That's how we got introduced. And it's just so interesting when you look at like how the dots connect over the course of your life. Like something that happened back in literally a decade before, relationships that I established in a decade or 12 years before, eventually 10, 12 years later, enabled me to meet somebody who was one of the great loves of my life. And it's just neat how that all works out. Like you've probably heard me say many times, people who like the same things tend to like each other. And it's just neat how people come into your life and it just like effortlessly fits together like a glove. He says, over the past year, I have grown as a different person. I'm sure all the people in my life have made an impact, but you're definitely on that list. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. He says, I would like to share my story of success that I've recently had. I was out with a friend just having fun, and one of the only times in my life girls have approached me. Well, there's an article on the homepage of my website for those of you that haven't read it called How to Get Women to Approach You First. And I go through that. And I also have the video on that page, Body Language That Attracts Women. And like I said, if you just apply those things that I teach in that one simple article and what's in that video, you literally have women coming up to you because you'll be perceived as the life of the party. Because you're going to be smiling, you're going to have a good time, and the people around you are going to be having a good time. And anybody observing your group, especially women, obviously, are going to notice that you're the leader. You're the funny guy. And the ones that tend to be the leaders tend to have the most confidence. They tend to have the highest self-esteem. They have the highest amount of self-love. And they're usually the most friendly and engaging people. In other words, they're the alpha males. And women are naturally going to be attracted to the most dominant members of the group. He says it was one of those situations where they have a very high level of attraction right off the bat, and I just have to stay in my center. We've been chatting for a bit, being playful throughout this whole time. They have tested, and I've passed, and I'm a pretty short guy, and they were giving me a hard time about it. But I would just laugh about it, almost giving them a look of, get the hell out of here with this nonsense. My printer's just turning on for some strange reason. He says it was great. It was a big group of people, and there were about 5 girls and 5 guys in their group. You notice what he was saying? It's like, because I've seen comments, guys like, oh, I'm too short, I'm bald, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that. And he's getting teased about his height. And one of the reasons why women do this is trying to see if he's self-conscious about it. But he communicates that it doesn't bother him. He thinks it's funny. It just, nothing diminishes him. And that obviously communicates that he can use some self-deprecating humor and not take himself so seriously, as opposed to getting all butthurt and feeling insecure about it. He says, as soon as 2 of the girls started talking to my friend and I, they all joined, and before I knew it, I was holding court and making all of the girls laugh. Wasn't going out to meet women, wasn't just hanging out with his buddy, having a good time. And people just naturally gravitated towards him. He says, this has never happened before, but it was obvious I was the alpha between the guys. They were all giving me the I'm going to beat you up look, but I would just go over to them, shake their hand, and introduce myself with a smile. That's perfect. You're making them all feel like part of the group. That's what the life of the party does. Nobody is left out, including those guys. And if you're good at making other people like you, which for those of you who haven't read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, I highly recommend that. That will really help those of you that struggle with social skills. A lot of great tools and great wisdom in there. He says, I could feel they were fuming inside since they wanted the girls, and one by one they left when they saw that they had no chance. They were really just making fools of themselves. He says, now I know what you mean about having no competition. There's even a chapter in my book, Why You Have No Competition. It's true. Because most guys don't understand this stuff. And they don't understand what you're doing, they just look at you like, well, this guy's just really good with women. They don't get it. They don't understand what the difference is. But obviously you're applying the things that I've taught because you prepared yourself. You said yourself, you read the book 7 times, and certain key points in the book that you really felt you were struggling with, you read 15 times or more. That's what it takes to succeed. You're doing the little things. It's like, nobody can take a 270-page book and smack it on their head and go, I've absorbed all the information now. I'm great at this. It doesn't work that way. He says, I ended the night just as I would have done on a date, just to show I am not fixated on them. They ended up taking my phone out of my hand, making me download Instagram just to follow them. They took multiple pictures with me and were constantly hugging me, handing me their phone to put my number in, and insisted that I put my full name in and to add me on Facebook. You notice that, Luke? Facebook, Instagram, phone numbers, hugging him. You see all these things that are going on, always, I mean, they're really going out of their way to make sure that he doesn't leave without them having every possible way to contact them and vice versa. That's what women do when they really like you. It's like he's not even asking for this. They're just like, you're not going anywhere until I get your number. It's beautiful how that works. And that same girl I was telling you about earlier, she was with a guy that I had used to work with, and she's like, oh, I got to give you my phone number. And I said, well, you're with so-and-so here. I didn't know at the time, but they weren't really kind of seeing each other. They kind of broken up. They were in essence just kind of heating up leftovers. And I remember when I told her that, she says, well, let me get your number. Give me your card. And so I gave her my business card, and it had my cell phone on it. And I was like, I think actually the very next day, she called me. And he, the guy that I had used to work with years before, they were in the car together because I guess he had spent the night at her, or she had spent the night at his place. And it's like literally like that Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember what it was. She called and wanted to come by the office, presumably just to sell insurance because I was in the real estate business. But it was all part of her evil plan. She just wanted to spend time with me and bat those pretty eyes and look at me with those pouty lips, and it's like, what can you say to that? It's like, sure, okay, well, yeah, let's go to lunch, all right? Oh, you want to meet for drinks? Okay, sure, yeah, we can do that too. What about so-and-so? Oh, you're not really together. Okay, well, that's cool. He says, I didn't give them my full name, and I put in a nickname that I had given myself during the conversation instead. You're doing what you want. That's awesome. That's fun. That's playful. It's different. You're living your truth. That's great, man. Good fucking job. He says, and they texted me right there on the spot to make sure that I have their number. At no point during this night was I looking to meet girls. Yeah, so you were not trying to meet girls, and you can't help but meet them. And they're literally not letting you leave until they get your number and forcibly give you theirs. How hard is it when things are like this? It's pretty fucking easy. This is the way life should be. Easy and effortless. I'm all about the path of least resistance. If you apply the things I teach, it's like exactly the way your life will be. He says, I'm not going to take this anywhere since I am in a relationship. It's experiences like this that make me a more confident person, and I think they change the way I approach girls, including my girlfriend. All I can say is that I'm blessed to have run across this information at 19. Fucking 19 years old and you're having experiences like this, dude. I envy you. I would have loved to have had experiences like this when I would have loved to have had a girlfriend when I was 19 years old. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I got to have my first real girlfriend. It's like, dude, you're fucking 19? Holy shit. When you get to be my age, you're going to be so much further ahead of me. That's awesome, dude. Good for you. So he says, thank you for the work you do. You have a good purpose in life. Cool, man. Well, thanks for sharing that great email and all those great experiences that you had with just being yourself and applying the things that I teach. And women can't help, because the other thing is you have a girlfriend, and so the vibe that you're putting out there is you're literally in a non-hungry state. And so for those of you guys that are single or that are struggling to meet women, you want to act as if you already had plenty of women in your life. How would you think? How would you act? What would the tone of your voice be? If you had more women calling you wanting to go out than you had time to, and you're just meeting another new girl, and she's wanting to give you her phone number or get yours, and you already can't handle all the women you have in your life, how would you think? How would you act? Act as if. Even if that's not your reality, try to imagine what that would be like. What would you think? What would you do? What would you say? What would be different than the way you're going about things now? Because women can tell. Women can tell a guy who has an abundance of women in his life and those that don't. And when a guy gives off the vibe of abundance like this guy has done a brilliant job of doing because he has a girlfriend, look how they reward you with that. So if you act exactly like this, your life can be that easy and that effortless. It's all in the book. It's in the videos. It's just follow what I teach. I promise you it will work for you. And if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions. And I will talk to you soon.